This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. Well, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are always trending for one reason or another, and there's always something linked to them that has to do with the occult. And it shouldn't surprise anyone that's what is trending with them is that the daughter of the two, or the so-called daughter of the two, depending on if they're both a man and a woman, nobody really knows at this point. I mean, we can all guess though, obviously, but let's just say it's really the child of the two. That the child of the two, known as Northwest, is being featured on a magazine cover at the age of 10 years old. You might say, well, where are you going with this? Well, we can start with the fact that a 10-year-old shouldn't be on a magazine cover. For starters, it's a little strange and it leads to weird obsessions and probably a lot of the mindset a lot of these psychopaths have in our society today, that they don't realize that they have these perversions and why they have them and what they really stem from with all the stuff they've inserted into our everyday lives and pop culture, etc. But it has to do with the actual cover of the magazine, where we see Northwest doing what? All-seeing eye symbolism at the age of 10. Now, is this a record? Well, I mean, we've seen Michael Jackson do it. No surprise that in this article that I read on this magazine cover, they mentioned the fact that Kim Kardashian got Northwest, Michael Jackson's jacket, probably the jacket he was wearing when they dragged his corpse out, because these people were pretty sick like that. But of course, they would get his jacket of all people, being what he was really involved in, even though some people don't like to think that he was. But nonetheless, on a magazine cover, doing an all-seeing eye symbol. Nothing to be suspicious about here, folks, right? Oh no, it gets even worse. Now, before I show you some of the other stuff in this magazine shoot, what you need to understand is that this is a vicious cycle that happens in Hollywood, which is why you eventually find out that all these people are related to one another, and the fact that all of these people who are abused as children go on to act this out to their own children. And it's a vicious cycle that doesn't end. These people never even realize what they're even doing because they think it's actually normal to do. They think that it's actually acceptable. And the times that these people try to break away from it, they're either offed or deemed completely insane by society because they start smearing their names in the tabloids. But the children like Northwest get born into this. And most of the time, these children, when they're born, you don't hear much about the children. You don't see the children out much with the celebrities because the children are being indoctrinated with the craft. Because the elites know that the child's brain at the age of 2, 3 years old is very, very programmable, right? See, the common person doesn't realize that when a child is 2 to 3 years old, that they're capable of learning a lot and actually learning meaningful things. But regular people, what we're all told to do is to do what with our children, right? Give your children pointless toys, Barbie dolls, things that don't make them smart. Nowadays, from what I've seen, parents stick their 2-year-olds in front of the television set and get them brainwashed immediately, and they don't even think that they're absorbing what they're seeing. They're like, oh, they're 2 years old. They don't know what they're seeing, right? The brain is like a brand new computer at the age of 1 to 2 to 3 years old. And that continues on until about 20 when your brain is completely formed, which is not ironic that that's usually when we all finish our schooling that we're told we need by the age of 20. That's because by that point, your brain is pretty much fully functioning and they programmed it as much as possible. To that point, they don't think you could break away from the programming unless you're very, very special, like all of us seem to be, from the standpoint that we were able to escape the programming we were all put under. And that's obviously thanks to Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit that we were able to break away. But these people never even get to know Jesus Christ or the Holy Spirit. They get to know of Jesus because I'm sure with Northwest as well, at a very young age, they're told that God is the enemy, that Satan is the God of this world, and look at one that they are to worship. They are taught the Bible. They are taught it backwards. So what happens at a young age, well, regular people are indoctrinating their kids with stupid stuff and dumbing them down and, giving, who even knows what to even say about what they're doing now, giving boys Barbies, etc., everything inverted. These people are taking their children at a young age and they're putting them through trauma-based mind control. They're putting them through all sorts of things that we would deem criminal, right? This is really, these people that we all look at and all these zombies worship, we look at them and know that they're Satanists. The zombies worship them. They put their children through so much abuse, it's unfathomable. And if you read books on SRA, you'll see a lot of the stuff that they do with young children. They lock them in coffins. They torment them beyond belief. All the stuff you probably heard experimentation done, like locking them in dark rooms, things you've heard of MK Ultra, I'm sure, over the past. If you haven't, those types of things, like experimenting with sounds, but they do more than that. They do obviously unfathomable acts, that are only, that you could find inside of that certain book that ends in the word mud. They do all this stuff with kids. So they program them at a young age. And then by the age of 10, well, you could already see the effects of it, right? You can already see, even by the weird behavior of a lot of these celebrity children, they're all bizarre. A lot of them end up being trans. They tell us they're trans, right? This is all because of the ritual abuse they've gone through and what they're taught is normal and what they're taught is right. And it's obviously everything they're taught is wrong. Couldn't be more wrong, but they think that it's right. So we have Northwest on the magazine cover, which in general is just wrong. It makes no sense to have a child on a magazine cover. But nonetheless, in this society, everyone's desensitized, so that's normal. And of course, the all-seeing eye symbolism right there for everyone to see, even though most people are like, well, Kanye West is a Christian and he's saved, etc., when he blasphemies God nonstop by all the things that he does, which I've exposed millions of times in the past. So then, this is where it gets interesting. When you open up the magazine, and obviously I don't own the magazine, but the magazine is available. You could read it on the internet, if you ever heard of the internet. And you could look and you could see what? You see Northwest with a red balloon. Now, most of you might be familiar with the red balloon. Most of you might not be. I've covered the red shoes before. I'm sure you've heard about the red shoes, right? What it symbolizes as far as the skin of a sacrifice offering. And why you see a lot of these people taking pictures with their red shoes is not because they're saying, hey, I love Ronald McDonald. I'm going to wear my clown shoes today. It's they're showing off what they've done. They do this stuff in front of our faces. The red balloon has multiple meanings, as do all of their meanings in the occult. But the red balloon is a symbol we always see associated with abuse of children. This is something that's over and over and over again done in the mainstream, in movies specifically, right? What do we all think of when we see a red balloon? Well, what most people probably think of the movie It, right? It with the red balloon. Well, here you have Northwest with the red balloon. Well, what is it doing throughout the film? It is going after and trying to devour children. Now, what most people don't know, but maybe my oldest subscribers, if they're still around, do remember, because those videos got strikes, I covered the real ending to the movie It. People don't realize it's a book from Stephen King, who is one of the most messed up. You could just look at Stephen King. If you don't see it when you look at him and realize, if you don't see somebody that you would expect to be in a dark room with kids, I don't know what to tell you. It's pretty easy to see a lot of these people, their eyes expose them. Their face, how they look. You look at George Soros, you see this. You look at David Rockefeller, you see this. You look at Stephen King, you see this. You see how sick and disturbed they are. Charlie Sheen, a lot of them, all of them, right? Well, Stephen King, for those of you that don't know, his clown movie, It, which they've remade they remade again for no reason whatsoever. The book, they don't tell you the actual ending in the book. They just have the movie, because if they actually put this ending in the movie, well, people out there probably arrest Stephen King. So if you're not familiar with the ending, let me just rehash it. So the whole movie is themed on the clown It, who's constantly doing what? He's walking around carrying the red balloon floating in the sky, right? And in the end of the actual story, what really happens is the Losers Club defeat It with makeshift weapons, and by conquering their fear in the end of the book, the Losers Club defeat It by all of them having a deeply problematic child orgy. Stephen King devotes an entire chapter in It to a scene where the 11-year-old Beverly Marsh decides the only way to unify the group and make it out of the sewers alive is to have perversions with every boy in the Losers Club, one by one. And then the article goes on to say, if it makes no sense, if it sounds like it makes no sense, it's because it doesn't. Well, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to those of us with eyes to see and ears to hear, because we know how important children and lust of children and bloodlust of children is in the Bible. Now, if you're not familiar about their obsession with children and sacrifice of children, this all goes back even to the Old Testament, to Baal worship, right? Sacrificing their offerings to Baal. Where do we see that? We see that right in the Bible. In Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 5, they have built also the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spoke it, neither came it into my mind, right? So it goes back to Baal worship, okay? So keep with me here. Balloon, right? Balloon. It's another form of the word Baal, just like the word ball is a form of the word Baal. Now, there's multiple reasons for this, okay? There's one of the reasons that they've named the object that we know as ball, whether it's a football, basketball, baseball, is because children, one of the first words that they speak normally, not normally, because kids will say, But one of the first words that they recognize and know is the word ball, because one of the first things children are infatuated with is this thing, a ball. They knew this by design, which is why they named balls ball, because it's another way of the child saying bail. That's how sick and deceptive these people are. So balloon is another term which has the word bail in it. Also to note with the balloon is the fact that the balloon does what? What do we know is filled in a balloon, right? What are balloons used to do, right? Balloons fly into the sky, in the air, okay? Powers of the air, Satan being a principality of the air. And we see in pop culture the red balloon always used. It's always used. It's always there. And people are like, oh, the creepy red balloon, right? I recently covered a video, and this is, again, another deleted channel, so the video's, somewhere. But Jamie Foxx was in a movie recently called God is a Bullet. Okay, you could watch the trailer for God is a Bullet if I don't insert it here.
Hello? I think I know who took your daughter.
She was in a cult. You really think this person is trustworthy?
Where's my daughter? She was alive 2 weeks ago.
If she had to go through what I did when they took me, it would be like nothing you can imagine.
Imagine if I showed up at your little church looking like this. They bring children here. In the end, they're killed. They keep some like me.
No!
Kill them. Kill all of them.
I am my freedom!
And God is a Bullet, the whole theme of the movie is about a child being abducted by a satanic cult. Sound familiar? Oh yeah, it's actually what's happening in every town in America as we speak. And in that trailer, they actually even show a little girl who's about to get taken inside of at a grocery store in the parking lot. They show a red balloon fly into the sky. This is all done by design. This is all, that symbolism has that specific meaning. So they didn't just, in other words, put Northwest on the cover of a magazine, doing it all seeing eye, and then say, wouldn't it be really cool if North is holding a red balloon? Because kids love balloons, and that's really cute. All of this stuff stems back to and ties into the occult, okay? Even words like ball, bail, balloon, right? And the fact that these are objects that target young children, they were specifically named these things as a form of Baal worship. Kids tend to be obsessed with these things at a young age, balls and balloons, right? So we see the red balloon always used. It's a reference to their infatuation, their lust for children, and their need for children in these sacrifices that they do, their offerings. This goes back, like I said, to the Old Testament with Baal worship and the offering to children. Now, there's other pictures out there that people could see, and you might remember that Ensiaga, and excuse my voice, I'm still a little under the weather, that Ensiaga thing. I can't say the word. But what did that start with? Oh, yeah, Baal, all right, ... Ensiaga. You know, the fashion company that supposedly is rich and famous. It does all these weird runway shows. Remember I covered that? Got thrown off within a day. My channel got thrown off for that, magazine shoot they had with all these kids and all these weird bondage things, right? The tie-ins with Kanye and Kim Kardashian to that specific brand, which happens to have the name Baal in it, right? Not to mention the fact that we've seen Northwest walking around with masks and things over it, this child's face, things that you would see in movies like Pulp Fiction. I don't even know what they call these like gag masks that they wear. It's sickening, but it's also just embarrassing. It's sickening that this abuse happens to these children. It's beyond sickening. I think a lot of them feel like they're in the right for doing it to their children because it's been done to them. And it's amazing that none of these people have ever had the courage to come forward and stop this from happening and lay their lives down to protect other children, other famous children, etc. But they truly believe, and this is because this is what's taught to them by their parents. And this is of utter importance, how important parents are to children's lives. And this is one of the reasons, again, that they want to take children from people's homes and indoctrinate them with what they call liberalism, which is really Satanism, is that they don't want these kids to ever learn of God. That's what their fear is. These kids in the occult, they learn of God, but they're told that our Father in heaven is the enemy. They're told to hate him, that he did this to people and he held these things from us and he wouldn't give us these things and he was selfish. Those are all the mindsets that all Satanists have. It's indoctrinated them at a young age. And these parents then pass this on to their kids. So their kids, pretty much when you look at them, you can see kids that are soulless. And you can see evil in a lot of these kids. Look at Will Smith's kids, right? All these celebrity children, you look at them and you just see emptiness, you see lostness, you see sickness. And they're already at a young age, already acting out these same things that their parents acted out on them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can't get into more detail about it. That's stuff obviously on the website that I've covered many times in the past with McMartin, et cetera. Yes, you can watch over on Uprising Revival. But back to Northwest. And again, these are all done by design. They roll these things out. And in a society where now where people are so desensitized, like people will hear my video and they'll be like, oh, you're being over dramatic. There's a 10-year-old on a magazine cover. If you told somebody 50 years ago that kids were being featured on magazine covers, they'd be like, what's wrong with you? They'd say, you're really sick. And the more I think about it, I'm just like, we've all become desensitized because once you start allowing some of these things to happen, it just gets worse and worse, which is exactly what happened with a certain community of people when we just started going, you know what? If they want to get married, let them get married. But look what it's gotten to now. They don't want to just get married. They want to get married to your kid inside of your home. They're psychopaths. All these people are of this seed are psychopaths, this demon seed that they are. So we have Northwest on the magazine cover, even wearing a crown, so, as well, which is another thing we see. Rihanna used the crown. Obviously, this is mockery to the thorn of crowns. It's a mockery to our King, Jesus Christ. They always like to do this. They always like to wear crowns, and they like to do it with children. So we saw it in Rihanna's Anti-Diary, which is really Antichrist, which was the first video I ever did. And we see it again here. Why children? Because children are the most precious thing in the world to God. Okay, that's why they target children. That's why the devil targets them. That's why his minions target children, because they're innocent and precious to God. They're pure. That's why. So they target children. So they like to use children and then mock God directly to God by corrupting these children at such a young age and then featuring them on magazine covers, music videos, wearing a crown. That's their way of holding up a middle finger to God and saying, look what we're doing to your precious children, because that's exactly what they covet and what they target. It's so disgusting. I don't understand how a society we've gotten here, but I guess I do from, like I'm saying, the desensitizing we've gone through, what we've allowed. So we've allowed kids to be on magazine covers. Now we're at a point where we're allowing kids to pick gender. That's how we transition and all this stuff, is that we just start going, okay, it's not a big deal, because we wear down. And we've worn down so much so that we've gotten to a point where these psychopaths really feel like they could take kids out of the home, people's homes, if they don't teach them, about the LG community. I mean, it's insane. It's utterly insane. But this is all done by design, of course, because they don't want children to find God. They want to corrupt children as much as possible. And of course, they offer children as sacrifice, which goes back to Baal worship, like I mentioned in Jeremiah, which is featured many times in the Bible, talking about the sacrifice offerings of children. And then, of course, this all ties into Aleister Crowley's teaching. So, the magazine cover, all-seeing eye symbolism, the crown mockery, and of course, holding a red balloon, Baal, red blood, sacrifice offering, and of course, the connection always is there with the red balloon and It. Like I mentioned, the plot of the movie It, the real plot in the book, how it ends, how they destroy It, with children doing those disgusting acts. Stephen King should be thrown in jail for even trying to publish something. If you found that in somebody's house, okay, written in a journal, you'd arrest the person. Nobody out there could argue against it, okay? The fact that this is a movie, a popular movie, and Stephen King makes money off of it, hasn't even been looked at as a criminal. He's praised in our society. The guy's disgusting and disturbing. Just look at the guy, and you know what he's into. The guy's an absolute scumbag, like all these people are. And I've covered King before, and all the creepy pictures with Drew Barrymore and his involvement with that, and Spielberg. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And what's even sicker is the fact that we live amongst these people, right? We could look at it and we could be like, man, these people have existed, though, for a long time. They're the people who are worshipped and in power in our society, whether it's celebrities with money and influence, and then they're the ones who groom our society with their propaganda films that we're told are fiction, and then they normalize all these satanic things, Harry Potter, Stephen King films, Exorcist film, all this stuff, right? They normalize all of it. And they're like the empowered people in our society, when in reality, other generations would have taken them out fast. Wouldn't even have been a debate. Wouldn't have need to be a discussion about it. It would have been done. And those generations of people would never have gone through what we're going through. But we're in a weaker society now. We are in a society where even talking about this stuff can get you thrown in jail. That's how soft society's gotten. That's how ridiculous it's gotten. And that's all done by design, by Lucifer and his minions. They've done that to us. Now, people are afraid to even question anything, because they'll be deemed a terror threat and all this other nonsense that they spew out of their mouths, and everybody repeats it, regurgitates it, and as long as they have their things like their phone, they're perfectly fine with it. But I appreciate everyone who's here. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always, and your families.